Welcome to your personalized deep dive into today's top cybersecurity news.
We've got some fascinating stories for you today
We've sifted through tons of articles, reports, and alerts.
to bring you the most crucial insights.
And there are always a few surprises along the way.
That's what keeps things interesting.
Today, we'll explore how ransomware gangs are evolving.
Spoiler alert, they're really into anime now.
We'll also uncover AI's dual role in cybersecurity.
It's both hero and villain, like a classic comic book story.
And finally, we'll delve into why protecting non-human identities in your organization is no longer optional.
Seriously, it's not just about humans anymore.
We'll even touch upon a mind-blowing new study on how deep neural networks could revolutionize cryptography.
Or completely break it. It's a double-edged sword.
It's a wild world out there.
You said it.
The sheer variety of threats and how they're evolving is fascinating.
It's not just about keeping up with the technology.
It's about understanding the attacker's motivations and tactics.
We're seeing a blend of classic attacks with cutting-edge techniques, all wrapped up in a digital landscape that's constantly shifting.
Let's jump right into the world of ransomware with the Ghost Ransomware Gang.
They're making waves, but not for the usual reasons.
Unlike many others, they're not focused on stealing data for double extortion.
Yeah, that's what makes them so intriguing.
If they're not after data, what's their endgame?
The sources suggest they're exploiting known vulnerabilities.
Some dating back years.
It's a classic case of security debt coming back to haunt organizations.
It proves that neglecting basic security can have major consequences down the line.
Absolutely. And their choice of tools is also interesting.
They're using a mix of commercial malware like Cobalt Strike and open source favorites like Mimikatz.
It's like they're shopping at both a high-end boutique and a discount store for their cyber weaponry.
This shows how attackers can leverage a wide range of resources, both readily available and purchased.
It reinforces the need for a layered security approach. You can't rely on a single tool or technique to protect yourself.
It's about defense in depth, covering all your bases.
Exactly.
While Ghost is busy exploiting old vulnerabilities, the Medusa ransomware gang is giving us a chilling reminder of the damage data theft can cause.
Oh yeah, that one's pretty scary.
They hit HCRG Care Group, a major UK healthcare provider.
A big target.
And it's not just financial data they're threatening to release.
No, this is where it gets really scary.
We're talking about sensitive patient data, employee records, even passports and birth certificates.
This kind of information could have devastating consequences for individuals and the organization.
It makes you wonder if some ransomware gangs are shifting their focus from disrupting operations to outright data theft.
It's a good question.
What does this mean for organizations' data protection strategies?
It means data security is paramount. It's no longer enough to just focus on backups and disaster recovery.
So, organizations need to step up their game.
Big time. They need to implement strong access controls, encryption, and data loss prevention measures to protect sensitive information at all costs.
Yeah, let's talk about AI. It's rapidly becoming essential in cybersecurity, but it's a double-edged sword.
Definitely a double-edged sword.
It can be a powerful tool for defenders, but attackers are also using it to their advantage.
Absolutely. On the one hand, AI can be a game changer for security teams.
Imagine AI helping developers spot security holes in their code before they even become problems.
That would be huge.
AI is also making waves in threat detection, sifting through mountains of data to find those subtle anomalies that human analysts might miss.
Think of it as an AI-powered bloodhound sniffing out digital intruders.
And in incident response, AI can automate many of the tedious tasks involved in responding to a breach, freeing up security professionals to focus on the most critical decisions.
It's all about efficiency and effectiveness.
Giving security teams a much-needed edge.
Exactly. But here's the flip side. Attackers are also using AI to make their attacks more sophisticated and evasive.
Right, so it's a constant arms race.
That's the reality of cybersecurity. Attackers are using AI to craft more convincing phishing lures, to bypass security controls, and to develop new malware that can evade detection.
So how can organizations stay ahead of the curve in this AI-powered cybersecurity battle?
They need to embrace AI for defense, investing in tools and training that leverage the power of machine learning. But they also need to understand how attackers are using AI and adapt their defenses accordingly. It's about anticipating the next move. Always staying one step ahead.
Speaking of staying ahead, let's move on to a topic that's often overlooked but absolutely crucial: the security of non-human identities.
This is a big one.
OWASP, a leading web security organization, just released its first ever Top 10 Non-Human Identities Risks Report.
It's a wake-up call.
What's fascinating here is how OWASP is shining a light on a blind spot for many organizations. We're so focused on protecting human users that we forget about all the other identities in our networks.
It's easy to overlook.
API keys, service accounts, cloud instances, IoT devices, the list goes on.
And the problem is that these non-human identities are often given excessive privileges without proper oversight,
They're like the keys to the kingdom, just sitting there unguarded.
making them prime targets for attackers.
The report highlights several chilling examples of breaches involving non-human identities.
It emphasizes that this is a real and growing threat. Attackers can exploit these identities to gain access to sensitive data, disrupt operations, or even launch large-scale attacks.
So what are the key takeaways for organizations? What can they do to protect these often forgotten identities?
It all starts with awareness. Organizations need to understand what non-human identities they have, where they exist, and what permissions they have. From there, they need to implement strong authentication and access controls for all identities, not just human users. Regular audits and reviews are essential. So is enforcing the principle of least privilege.
That means giving non-human identities only the bare minimum access they need to do their jobs. No more, no less.
Exactly. It's like giving someone a key to the supply closet instead of a master key to the entire building.
Now let's venture into a realm where even the experts are scratching their heads. Cryptography in the age of AI. Researchers are exploring how to implement cryptography directly within deep neural networks. It's a fascinating concept, but it raises some mind-blowing questions.
This research is still in its early stages, but it has huge implications. DNNs operate differently than traditional computers. It's like trying to translate a book from English to an alien language. The rules are different, the structures are different, and the way information is processed is different. This means current cryptographic methods may be completely ineffective in this new environment.
So we're essentially talking about rewriting the rules of cryptography for the AI age.
In a way, yes. It's both exciting and a little terrifying. Can we create truly secure crypto systems for AI systems? Or will attackers find ways to exploit these new architectures to break existing encryption methods? These are questions we'll need to grapple with in the years to come. It's a reminder that the cybersecurity landscape is constantly evolving. What works today might not work tomorrow.
And that's why staying informed and adaptable is so important. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the evolving tactics of ransomware gangs to the dual nature of AI and cybersecurity. And we've explored the often overlooked but crucial importance of securing non-human identities.
It's a complex landscape, but by staying informed, implementing strong security controls, and thinking critically about emerging technologies, organizations can stay ahead of the curve. They can protect themselves and their data from the ever-changing dangers of the digital world.
We're just getting started. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve deeper into some of the specific attacks and vulnerabilities that are making headlines today.
We'll uncover the secrets of the Ghost ransomware gang's unique approach and examine the fallout from the Medusa attack on HCRG Care Group. We'll also explore the OWASP Top 10 Non-Human Identities Risks Report in more detail, and we'll tackle the fascinating but daunting challenge of cryptography in the age of AI.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
Let's talk about a story that highlights the critical importance of securing the backbone infrastructure of AI applications.
Yeah, with the increasing use of generative AI in the enterprise.
We're seeing a whole new set of security challenges emerge.
It's not just about protecting the AI models themselves
It's also about safeguarding the vast amounts of enterprise data.
that these applications rely on.
So it's like protecting the fuel that powers the AI engine.
Exactly. If that data is compromised, the entire engine can grind to a halt.
Makes sense.
The sources emphasize the need for robust identity security controls.
To protect this critical infrastructure.
That means protecting the accounts and credentials that have access to this infrastructure.
Gotcha.
And we're not just talking about IT and cloud operations teams.
We're talking about everyone.
We're talking about business users, data scientists, developers.
Anyone else who has access to sensitive data or systems.
Right.
It sounds like we need to go beyond basic authentication.
And role-based access control.
Right.
Absolutely. The source is recommending strong, adaptive, multi-factor authentication for all user access. They also stress the need to secure access to, audit the use of, and regularly rotate credentials, keys, certificates, and secrets used by both humans and back-end applications or scripts.
It's all about minimizing the attack surface and preventing unauthorized access. It's like locking down every door and window in your house and changing the locks regularly.
Exactly.
So zero trust.
The sources also recommend following a zero-trust, assume-breach approach.
That means assuming that our systems have already been compromised and taking steps to limit the damage an attacker could do.
Precisely. It's a proactive approach to security that's essential in today's threat landscape.
Now let's revisit a story that we touched upon earlier. Researchers are exploring how to implement cryptography directly within deep neural networks. It's a fascinating concept with groundbreaking potential, but it also raises some serious questions.
The problem is that deep neural networks operate differently than traditional computers.
So different.
Current cryptographic methods may be completely ineffective in this new environment.
Hmm.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
So we need to rethink cryptography from the ground up.
To make it work within the unique architecture of deep neural networks.
That's a tall order.
Exactly. It's a monumental task, but the potential rewards are enormous.
Like what?
Imagine a world where AI systems can securely process sensitive data without the risk of it being compromised.
Oh, wow, that would be a game changer for industries like healthcare, finance, and government.
Absolutely. But there are significant challenges ahead.
Like,
Ensuring the security of the cryptographic keys used within deep neural networks is paramount.
what else?
Developing cryptographic algorithms that are both secure and efficient within the constraints of deep neural networks is no easy feat. It's a delicate balancing act. And then there's the question of how to verify the integrity of the deep neural network itself. How can we be sure that it hasn't been tampered with and is still functioning correctly?
So it's a complex and challenging area of research, but one with enormous potential. Now let's get back to the world of ransomware. We've already discussed the Ghost and Medusa ransomware gangs, but there's another group that's making headlines today, Frigid Stealer.
Frigid Stealer is a new Mac OS malware
Oh no, macOS.
that's being distributed through fake browser update campaigns.
So they're preying on users' desire to keep their software up to date.
Exactly. The attackers are using compromised websites to redirect users to pages that look like legitimate browser update prompts, but if the user clicks on the download link, they'll actually be downloading Frigid Stealer.
And once Frigid Stealer is installed on a system, what can it do?
It's an information stealer. It's designed to steal sensitive data from the victim's computer. This includes browser cookies, files with extensions relevant to passwords or cryptocurrency, and Apple Notes.
So it's a serious threat to both individuals and organizations. It highlights the importance of being cautious about downloading software updates.
Absolutely. Always make sure you're downloading updates from legitimate sources, such as the official website of the software vendor. Don't just click on any pop-up that tells you to update your browser.
Speaking of software updates, let's talk about the importance of patching. One of the reasons ransomware is so successful is that many organizations are slow to patch their systems.
That's right. Attackers are constantly scanning for systems with known vulnerabilities. They're often able to exploit those vulnerabilities before organizations have a chance to patch them.
And patching is not just about fixing bugs, it's about closing security holes that could be exploited by attackers.
Precisely. Patching needs to be an ongoing process, not a one-time event. Organizations need to have a robust patch management process in place to ensure that all systems are up to date with the latest security updates.
Now let's delve into the OWSP Top 10 Non-Human Identities Risks Report. This report highlights a number of risks associated with non-human identities. One that stands out is the risk of insecure cloud deployment configurations.
This is a critical risk because many organizations are moving their applications and data to the cloud, but they're not always doing so securely.
What are some of the common mistakes that organizations make when deploying applications to the cloud?
One common mistake is failing to properly configure security settings for cloud services. For example, they might leave storage buckets open to the public, or they might not enable encryption for sensitive data. Another mistake is failing to adequately secure the CI/CD pipeline.
The CI/CD pipeline is a critical part of the software development process, but it's often overlooked from a security perspective.
Exactly. If attackers can compromise the CI/CD pipeline, they can inject malicious code into applications before they're even deployed. It's like poisoning the well before anyone has a chance to drink from it.
So it's crucial for organizations to treat cloud security with the same level of importance as traditional on-premises security.
Absolutely. This includes implementing strong access controls, encrypting sensitive data, and monitoring for suspicious activity.
The OWASP report also highlights the risk of long-lived secrets.
Long-lived secrets are credentials such as API keys and tokens that don't expire or have very long expiration dates. This makes them a prime target for attackers. If they're compromised, they can be used to access sensitive data and systems for an extended period.
So it's like giving someone a key to your house that never expires.
Exactly. The solution is to move away from long-lived secrets and to adopt short-lived credentials that expire frequently.
That makes it much harder for attackers to exploit compromised credentials. It also reduces the blast radius of an attack.
Precisely. If a credential is compromised, it will only be valid for a short period. Organizations should also consider using secret management tools to help them secure and manage their secrets. Think of it like a secure vault for your most sensitive credentials.
Now let's talk about the risk of a lack of environment isolation.
Environment isolation is a critical security principle that involves separating different environments such as development, testing, and production. This prevents security breaches from spreading from one environment to another.
So if an attacker compromises the development environment, for example, they shouldn't be able to easily pivot to the production environment.
Exactly, but many organizations don't adequately isolate their environments, which makes them more vulnerable to attacks.
What are some of the steps that organizations can take to improve environment isolation?
They can use separate non-human identities for each environment, enforce the principle of least privilege, implement environment-specific access controls, and regularly audit and monitor non-human identities for unauthorized access attempts. It's like building walls between different parts of your house to contain a fire.
Makes sense. The OWSP report also highlights the risk of reusing non-human identities.
Reusing non-human identities across multiple applications and services is a bad security practice. It increases the blast radius of an attack. If an attacker compromises a non-human identity that's being used by multiple applications, they can potentially gain access to all of those applications.
So it's important to create unique non-human identities for each application or service.
Precisely. Organizations should also consider using a centralized identity and access management (IAM) system to help them manage their non-human identities. It's like having a master key ring for all your keys, but each key is clearly labeled and only opens one specific door.
Now let's talk about the final risk highlighted in the OW Watch report, the human use of non-human identities.
This risk arises when humans use non-human identities to perform tasks such as accessing sensitive data or systems. This can be a problem because it can bypass security controls that are in place for human users.
For example, if an administrator uses a service account to access sensitive data, they might not be subject to the same level of auditing and monitoring as they would if they were using their own account.
That's right, and it can also be difficult to determine who is actually responsible for actions that are taken using a non-human identity.
So it's like wearing a mask to commit a crime.
Exactly. Organizations should discourage the human use of non-human identities whenever possible. If it's absolutely necessary for a human to use a non-human identity, they should be subject to the same level of security scrutiny as they would if they were using their own account.
It's about accountability and transparency. Now let's shift gears and talk about some recent data breaches that have been in the news. One breach that's particularly concerning is the alleged data leak from OmniGPT.
OmniGPT is a platform that allows users to create and deploy large language model (LLM) applications.
Okay?
The attackers claim to have stolen a large amount of data from OmniGPT, including personally identifiable information (PII), financial information, access credentials, tokens, and API keys.
And if this data is legitimate, it could have serious consequences for both OmniGPT and its users.
Absolutely. The leaked data could be used to launch phishing attacks, commit identity theft, and gain unauthorized access to sensitive systems. It's a stark reminder that even cutting-edge AI platforms are not immune to attack.
It highlights the importance of implementing strong security controls for these applications, just as we would for any other type of application. Let's move on to another recent breach. The Signal messaging app has been targeted by multiple APT groups.
Signal is a popular end-to-end encrypted messaging app that's often used by journalists, activists, and others who need secure communications. But despite its strong encryption, Signal is not immune to attack.
So how are attackers targeting Signal?
They're using a variety of techniques, including phishing attacks, malware, and exploits. For example, one APT group has been observed using custom-built phishing kits that mimic the Signal login page.
So if a user falls for the phishing attack and enters their credentials on the fake login page, the attackers can steal their account.
Exactly. And once they have access to a user's account, they can read their messages, steal their contacts, and even impersonate them. Another APT group has been observed using a malware implant that collects geolocation data and other device information from compromised devices.
That's scary. It means they could be tracking the movements of Signal users and identifying their associates.
Precisely. It's a chilling reminder that even the most secure messaging apps are vulnerable to attack if the attackers can compromise the device itself.
It highlights the importance of taking steps to protect your devices from malware, such as using a reputable antivirus program and being cautious about installing apps from untrusted sources. Let's switch gears and talk about incident response. A new study has highlighted the emotional toll that cybersecurity incidents can take on security teams.
Cybersecurity incidents are stressful events. They often involve long hours, high pressure, and the potential for significant consequences if the incident is not handled properly.
And this can take a toll on the mental and emotional well-being of security professionals.
Absolutely. The study found that many security professionals experience stress, anxiety, burnout, and even post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as a result of their work.
That's concerning. It can lead to decreased productivity, increased absenteeism, and even turnover.
It's a serious issue that organizations need to address.
What can they do to help their security teams cope with the emotional toll of cybersecurity incidents?
The study recommends a number of steps that organizations can take. These include providing access to mental health resources, creating a supportive work environment, and promoting work-life balance. It's also important to debrief after incidents to allow security professionals to process what happened and to learn from the experience. Organizations should also consider providing training to help security professionals build resilience and cope with stress.
It's about taking care of the people who are on the front lines of cybersecurity. Now let's talk about a topic that's often overlooked but is becoming increasingly important: the security of industrial control systems, ICS.
ICS are used to control critical infrastructure, such as power plants, water treatment facilities, and manufacturing plants. And they're increasingly being targeted by attackers who want to disrupt operations or cause physical damage.
A new report has highlighted a number of vulnerabilities that have been discovered in ICS.
The report found that many ICS are vulnerable to attacks because they're running outdated software, they're not properly configured, and they're not adequately protected from network attacks.
Those are serious vulnerabilities that could be exploited by attackers to gain control of ICS and to cause serious damage.
Absolutely. For example, an attacker could cause a power outage, shut down a water treatment facility, or even cause an explosion at a manufacturing plant.
So it's crucial for organizations that operate ICS to take steps to secure these systems.
The report recommends a number of steps that organizations can take. These include patching systems, implementing strong access controls, segmenting networks, and monitoring for suspicious activity. It also stresses the importance of having a robust incident response plan in place in case an ICS is compromised.
It's about protecting critical infrastructure from cyberattacks that could have real-world consequences. And now for a story that highlights the importance of user education. Cybercriminals are using a clever new tactic to spread malware: fake captchas.
Captchas are those tests that websites use to verify that a user is human and not a bot.
You know, the ones where you have to type in a distorted word or identify images that contain a certain object.
Exactly. But attackers are now creating fake captchas that look like the real thing but are actually designed to trick users into downloading malware.
How does that work?
The attackers will typically compromise a legitimate website and then inject their fake captcha code into the site.
So when a user visits the site, they'll see the fake captcha and think it's a legitimate security measure.
Exactly. And if the user follows the instructions in the fake captchas, they'll actually be downloading and installing malware on their computer.
What are some of the signs that a captcha might be fake?
One sign is that the captcha might be asking you to do something unusual, such as copy and paste a command into your computer or press a series of keys on your keyboard. Another sign is that the captcha might be poorly designed or contain grammatical errors.
So it's important to be cautious about captchas and to only follow the instructions if you're absolutely sure that the captcha is legitimate.
And if you're ever unsure, it's always best to err on the side of caution and to avoid interacting with the captcha altogether.
It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant and aware of the latest tactics that cybercriminals are using.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity is a constantly evolving field, and the bad guys are always coming up with new ways to trick us. Stay informed, stay alert, and stay safe.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've talked about the rise of non-human identities,
Yeah.
but let's zoom in on a specific type: AI agents.
Okay.
They're poised to revolutionize how we interact with technology, but their security implications are huge.
Yeah, they really blur the lines between human and machine identities.
Right.
They're designed to act autonomously, making decisions and taking actions on our behalf. This raises questions about accountability and control.
Right, because how do you hold something accountable that's not a person?
That's the question.
So imagine thousands, even millions of AI agents operating within an organization. How do you ensure they're acting as intended,
Right.
not going rogue?
Not being hijacked by attackers?
Exactly.
The sources point to several key considerations.
Like,
First, authentication.
okay.
How do you verify the identity of an AI agent and grant it appropriate access to systems? Traditional methods like passwords may not be suitable.
Right, because an AI agent isn't typing in a password. It needs a way to prove its identity programmatically.
Exactly. This could involve digital certificates, cryptographic tokens, or even behavioral analysis to confirm that the agent is acting as expected. Then there's access control. How do you limit what an AI agent can do, preventing it from exceeding its intended purpose or being used for malicious activities?
It sounds like we need to treat AI agents like employees,
Uh-huh.
giving them specific roles and responsibilities.
That's a good analogy. We need to define their job descriptions, so to speak, and then give them the tools and permissions they need to do their jobs effectively, but nothing more. This requires a granular approach to permissions, granting AI agents only the access they absolutely need to perform their tasks. Regular audits and monitoring are crucial to ensure these permissions aren't being abused.
It sounds like securing AI agents will require a whole new set of security tools and practices.
Absolutely. It's a new frontier in cybersecurity, and we're just starting to grapple with its complexities. It's like exploring a new planet. We need to develop new maps, new tools, and new ways of thinking to navigate this uncharted territory.
Now let's move on to a story that's both alarming and strangely amusing. A new malware campaign is using anime-themed lures to trick users into downloading malware.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This campaign is particularly interesting because it combines social engineering with sophisticated technical tactics to evade detection.
Okay, so phishing, but more than that.
Precisely. The attackers are using LMK files disguised as anime wallpapers to deliver the malware.
LMK files are shortcuts that Windows uses to open files and applications.
Right.
So the user thinks they're clicking on an image, but they're actually launching a malicious script.
Exactly. And the script then downloads and executes a PowerShell script that performs a series of actions designed to bypass security controls and ultimately deliver the asynchronous remote access Trojan.
Async is a nasty piece of malware that gives attackers full control over the victim's computer.
Uh-huh.
They can steal data, install additional malware, and even use the computer to launch attacks against other targets.
This campaign is particularly dangerous because it uses a number of techniques to evade detection. It bypasses the Animalware Scan Interface, AMCI, disables event tracing for Windows, ETW, and uses encryption and compression to obfuscate its payloads. It's like they've given their malware a stealth suit, making it harder for security tools to detect it.
So it's a multi-layered attack that's designed to slip past traditional security defenses.
What's particularly clever about this campaign is how it abuses legitimate tools and techniques to achieve its goals. For example, it uses the Eclipse jar signer tool, which is a legitimate application used for signing Java code to sideload the Xloader malware.
Sideloading is a technique that attackers use to trick a legitimate application into loading malicious code. It's a sneaky way to bypass security controls that are based on file reputation.
Right, it's like sneaking a weapon into a concert by hiding it inside a musical instrument case.
So what can organizations do to protect themselves from these kinds of attacks?
The sources recommend a combination of technical and human-centric defenses.
Okay.
On the technical side, they recommend deploying advanced antivirus and endpoint detection and response solutions that can identify and block malicious scripts, AMSI bypass techniques, and unauthorized memory modifications. They also recommend configuring PowerShell execution policies to restrict unauthorized scripts and to enable logging for PowerShell activities to detect suspicious commands running in the background. And they stress the importance of monitoring outbound network traffic regularly for unusual activity, such as connections to unknown external servers.
But technology alone isn't enough.
No. User education is also crucial. We need to train users to be wary of suspicious links and files, especially those related to popular interests like anime.
It all comes back to being aware of what you're clicking on.
Exactly. It's a reminder that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. Technology can help, but it's ultimately up to users to be vigilant and to take steps to protect themselves. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the evolving tactics of ransomware gangs to the emerging threat of AI agents. We've seen how AI is being used for both good and evil in cybersecurity, and we've explored the importance of securing non-human identities both in the cloud and on our own devices. It's a complex and constantly changing landscape, but by staying informed, implementing strong security controls, and thinking critically about emerging technologies, we can stay ahead of the curve. Remember, knowledge is power. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.